Guys, I thought I knew this story when I started researching it, but the more that I got into it, it literally was like, what the heck? Like, it'll leave you thinking, like, how the fuck did they miss that? But before we get into the actual case, my name's Natalie.
I'm Erika, and this is Drunken True Crime.
So, like we said, this is one of the craziest cases that we have ever covered on our channel. But before that, we got to get into our disclaimers. So really quickly, hopefully you guys know them all. But one, we're going to be talking about true crime. So with that comes gory details sometimes. Exactly. Two, we're going to be drinking. So
also those trolls that are like, they're drinking, how disrespectful. I'm like, was the name not your fucking clue?
Yeah. So we're drinking.
Cheers.
We have a different cocktail every single time. So this morning, because we are shooting in somewhat early in the day, much earlier than what we normally shoot.
Morning filming.
So
not my forte.
This is our morning spritzer. So we'll link the recipe down below. We created it ourselves
because we had nothing.
We were missing a few key ingredients. The third one is that you will hear us cuss. That's just us, how we talk on a normal basis. And again, this is two best friends talking true crime. That's us. If you see us laughing as well, or like joking or anything like that, it's not being disrespectful to the victims by any means, okay? This is just two best friends talking about true crime, and we're being ourselves. And most of the time when we are making fun of each other.
Exactly.
So if that offends you, please don't continue to watch because you won't like this. For those of you that are new, thank you for joining us. For those of you that are returning, we are so happy to see you again. And with that being said, grab your cocktails, take a sip, and let's jump into this case.
Cheers.
Okay, so this case actually takes us back to 2006 on Christmas Day, when Don Waller and his family were about to sit down for their traditional holiday dinner. However, they're missing a really important piece: his son Ryan and his son's girlfriend, Heather Quan.
Okay.
So Don calls Ryan, but it goes straight to voicemail. So they just decide as a family, we'll go ahead, we'll sit down and start eating dinner. Ryan and Heather, they'll show up. However, they go all the way through dinner, still no Ryan. So, in the middle of dinner, his dad tried to call him again, no answer. Again, after dinner, they tried calling both him and Heather, no answer again. And so at this point, they're really nervous because this is not like Ryan at all. Like, he doesn't just miss events without telling someone what's going on.
Especially Christmas dinner, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah, exactly. So they grow really concerned. And they actually decide on Christmas night that they're going to jump into their car and they're going to go to Ryan's house. So they arrive at Ryan's house at approximately 7:45, and they go and knock on the door, but they don't get an answer. And the garage door is closed, so they don't know if their cars are home. But they're concerned enough that they decide to call this into police and ask for a welfare check.
Right.
And so they make this call around like 8 o'clock. It takes police 4 hours to actually show up. And so I know welfare checks aren't necessarily at the top of their list, and I don't know what else was going on, but 4 hours seems like kind of a long time to me. That's just my opinion. So at midnight, the police do arrive, and they go up to the door, they knock on the door, they don't get an answer. So they go around to the back of the house, they try to knock, there's 2 doors in the back, they try to knock on those, still don't get an answer. They try peeking in the windows, and one of the police officers says he thinks he saw a body that was motionless. So at this point, they tell Don and his wife that they have to move away from the house, and they put them behind this barrier so they're not, getting in the way of police, essentially.
Right.
The police then call for, instead of going into the house, they call for a search warrant, and this takes about another hour. So they're just sitting there waiting for the search warrant. They do eventually get the search warrant, and even then they don't go and knock down the door, they try to pick the lock. So they get a locksmith, they go to the front of the house, they try to pick the lock on the front door. They're unsuccessful doing this, so then they go back around the house and go to the back door. So they're like fucking with this lock, trying to get it open. And at this point, this wakes up the person inside, and this man opens the door. And so the police are like, okay, someone's alive in here. Like, they're relieved at this point. And then they ask this man, they're like, hey, are you Ryan? Which it is. So again, they're really relieved. But when asked this question, Ryan doesn't really respond. Like, he's just kind of like brushes them off and is like, I don't know, he's just kind of quiet, which is kind of strange. So then the police go on to explain that they are there to do a welfare check. And so he's like, okay, like, again, doesn't really say anything, just kind of seems to be a little bit dodgy, which rubs the police officers kind of the wrong way.
So the police don't pry too much at this point, because at this point they're just like happy to see that Ryan is okay, after trying to get into this house for a very long time. So after they see Ryan's okay, one of the cops kind of peeks around Ryan and sees that there's a lady lying on the couch. And they ask, hey Ryan, is that Heather? Is that your girlfriend? And he's kind of being like acting elusive at this point, like, whatever guys, like, she's just taking a nap, you know?
Yeah.
And the police asked again, like, hey, we were sent here to do a welfare check. And at this point, Ryan's not very happy and seems very unhappy with the situation, but, you know, doesn't immediately comply with what the police are saying, but he does eventually step aside to let them do, you know, what the officers came in there to do. So brace yourselves. When the police do walk in the house, they notice a very grisly sight right off the bat. Ryan's 24-year-old girlfriend, Heather.
21-year-old, sorry.
That's what I said.
You said 24?
I thought I said 21.
Ryan's 24-year-old girlfriend.
Ryan's 21-year-old girlfriend, Heather Quan, was lying on the couch dead. She died of a gunshot wound to the head.
Jesus.
Which, terrible way to go.
Yeah. Terrible sight. Very
There's
grisly.
no good way to go, but like,
yeah,
terrible sight for the police officers on Christmas and like everybody involved. It's just
Yeah.
awful.
it is.
So to no surprise, you know, cops immediately arrest Ryan. I mean,
Yeah.
he's the number one suspect.
Right.
And take him outside and place him in the squad car. So Ryan doesn't like resist arrest, but like he's not being compliable. He's just kind of confused and asking what's going on.
Yeah.
It's more just very confusion than like
Being like hostile.
being
or,
blatantly like
aggressive.
hostile
Yeah.
or like resisting arrest, trying to get out the handcuffs, that
Yeah.
sort of thing.
Yeah.
Now remember, Don, Ryan's dad, is outside the whole time. Him and his wife are like barricaded away so they wouldn't get involved with like the welfare check, and like their safety is important too. He is relieved to see that Ryan is alive at this point, because after 4 hours or 5 hours at this
Yeah,
point,
it's 5 hours at this point.
they do see that their child is alive and well. But very confused and scared as to why they placed Ryan under arrest. Don runs over to the cop car and to see what is going on, and to kind of get like facts of like what the fuck's going on.
Why did you just arrest my son? What's happening? Like,
Yeah.
Where's Heather? Yeah.
And one of the police officers was like, "Don't come near that car." Don, being the protective dad that he is, continues to walk toward the car.
Yeah.
I mean,
how
you're
do you
going
talk them?
to.
Like, yeah. I don't blame him for that. I'm like, no, let me see my son. Like,
yeah. So one of the police officers steps in front of Don and was like, "No, you can't walk toward the car. Like, he's under arrest. Like, we're taking him to the station for a line of questioning. Like, you just can't."
Yeah.
At this point, Don was afraid he was going to get arrested too.
Yep.
So he does step aside and complies with the officers.
yeah. Because, I mean, at that point, what do you do?
There's nothing you can do.
Yeah, the police officer said, like, you can come down to the station in a few hours when we're questioning him, and, you know, you can wait. Like, this is what we're
Like,
going to
do
do.
you think
but-
that you can just, like, easily manipulate a police officer and be like, you
Yeah.
know what, you're right, I'm just gonna let this guy go, that's our only
Yeah.
suspect, and you can take him home.
Yeah, like, I mean, I think Don, like,
Go
his
enjoy
thought-
your dinner.
I think Don's thought process was that he wanted to just see, one, if his son was okay.
Right.
Two, like, what happened, and was just wanting to talk to Ryan. But of course, like, he's the number one suspect. Police are going to keep them, like, separated. I get both sides. So I get Don's side, like, wanting to protect his kid, making sure he's okay. But I also get the police side saying, like, no, you guys cannot talk about
I was
this
just being
yet.
an asshole. I was just like, because, like, in those situations, you're not really thinking. You're
No.
just like, I need to know that, number one, my son is okay, and I
Yeah.
need to figure out what the fuck's going on so I know how to help him.
Yeah, I just, like, I think I have a soft spot in my heart for Don Waller, because he's, I don't know, he's so, like,
Productive.
he's so protective, he's so genuine, he's so, like, heartbroken about everything, and he's so passionate about, like, continuing to fight for justice in this case that it's just, I don't know, I'm bleeding heart. Like, he's amazing.
Well, I mean, I get it. I was just being an asshole because, like, I would probably do the same thing. But, like, in that situation, what do you think you can do?
Yeah, nope, I agree. Yeah, he wasn't getting past the cops.
Right. So now after the police, you know, find Heather dead on the couch inside the house, following protocol, the paramedics were called.
They basically just have to confirm that she is actually dead, even though it was quite obvious to police that
she was actually dead. So the paramedics do arrive and go in the house. They are there for a few minutes and quickly confirm that Heather is dead, and they leave. I do want to mention that they do not check Ryan at all or evaluate anything to see if he has been injured or was injured.
Right.
They just go and check on Heather.
Right. This is really important to Erika's point because when police found Ryan, he had a massive, massive black eye. Like, I mean, it is so bad that it is swollen shut. Like, it is really gruesome. To Erika's point, no one thinks to have Ryan checked or evaluated for any of his injuries.
So now after it's 5 hours, you know, after all this has gone on, and Ryan's sitting in the squad car, they do eventually take him back to the police station and start questioning him as to what happened to Heather.
Yeah, but he sat in that police car, in the back of that police car for 4 additional hours while they process the scene. Yes.
What?
Yes. Is that not insane? Yeah. So as they're processing the scene and collecting evidence and the paramedics are coming, you know,
they must have had, like, not a lot of people.
That could be true.
Like, they must have been, like tight.
Yeah.
And very short staffed that night because that's very, not that I'm an expert, but that's very unheard of.
Yeah, it is unusual. But that, I mean, yeah, he did sit there for quite a long time.
Now we're going to talk through this very strange hour-long interrogation of what happens.
Yep. Okay, so at approximately 5 a.m. on December 26th, so again, this is 5 hours after they found Heather's body, the police lead Ryan into an interrogation room.
Mm-hmm.
They uncuff him and they leave him in there alone for a little bit. Now, while Ryan is alone, you hear him moaning just a little bit. At one point, he lays his head down on the actual table. But after a minute or so, you see Ryan do something quite strange. You actually see him handcuff himself to the table.
What?
Yeah. It's definitely strange behavior.
I mean, it's not as strange as, like, Jodi Arias singing "Oh Holy Night" doing headstands.
That's true. We have seen some really weird interrogations.
But, I mean, he's probably just bored.
Yeah, and that could be. He could have just been bored and just messing around. But after this, Ryan continues to sit in his chair, and you hear him moan a few more times. After about 5 minutes pass, Ryan actually stands up and walks away from the table, forgetting that he had just handcuffed himself to the table. And when he's, like, walking away and he's, like, pulled back, he almost seems... What?
This is something I would fucking do.
Oh, well, he seems confused at the fact that he is handcuffed to the table. He then sits back down and grabs a piece of paper, a blank piece of paper that's on the table, sits down and starts reading it.
Yeah.
So right after this, a tech actually walks into the room and starts processing Ryan for evidence. They start with photographing his feet. Now, for the most part, Ryan pretty much remains silent. He doesn't talk a lot with this tech that's processing all the evidence. But he does repeatedly say that he wants to go home and he wants to go to sleep. You can also see him, he goes and he touches his eyes his eye a few times.
His eye looks terrible.
Yeah, his eye is bad. And you hear him moan a few more times.
Yeah, the moaning's very prominent.
Yeah.
In that video.
Yeah. So now, after approximately 20 minutes of Ryan being in this room, the detective that is going to be interviewing him walks in, and this is Detective Dalton. So the detective asks Ryan, he goes, "What was the last grade you made it through in school?" So Ryan seems just very irritated at the fact that this detective is asking him questions, even though they just walked in and found his girlfriend dead on the couch.
Right.
And so again, Ryan goes like back and forth on his answer, and then he almost completely forgets what the question was at the beginning.
What's the highest grade you went through school?
I don't know. I don't know.
You don't know the highest grade you went through?
8th?
Eighth grade? Did you graduate?
Yeah.
Do you have a GED?
I don't know.
You don't know what?
I don't know. I don't know. I just want to go home.
Oh, you're not going to go home right now.
So what?
What's the highest grade that you completed?
B?
No. Not grade, as in letter grade. I'm asking, did you graduate high school?
No.
And the highest you went was 8th grade?
Yep.
Do you know how to read and write, Ryan?
So after this, Detective Dalton then starts to question Ryan about Heather. Remember, his girlfriend who was just found dead on the couch.
Right.
Quite frankly, Ryan's answers are just bizarre. He provides the detective with false information. So he gives them Heather's incorrect last name. He gives them her like incorrect age. Things that just don't, like, there's no reason for him to really lie about this. So Detective Dalton's like, okay, yeah, what's going on?
What the fuck is going? Am I being punked?
Yeah, and like Ryan just seems completely uninterested in helping the police find who did this to her.
What is Heather's last name?
The one that lives there right now?
I guess, I don't know. If her name's Heather, what's her last name?
I don't know which name she's trying to use as her last one. She's trying to have a real last as her nickname, so I don't know.
What nickname does she go by?
She probably wants the last name, Kyman.
Kyman? How would you spell that? With a K or a C?
K?
Keep going.
I don't know.
How old is Heather?
16 or 17.
Is she a white girl?
Yeah.
Detective Dalton then goes and asks Ryan, what happened to your face? And at first, like, Ryan just doesn't really answer the question. Again, he's being elusive. But then he goes on to say that Heather did it, but that it was an accident. From there, he goes back and forth, changing his story just a little bit, and he just isn't really, he's just not making any sense at this point.
Right.
And Ryan starts to become very irritated with the detective.
What happened to your face?
I don't know.
You told the officer just a few minutes ago that someone hit you. Do you remember who hit you?
I don't know. I think it was Heather.
Why would Heather hit you?
I don't know. It was an accident. I forgot why.
What was an accident?
Heather's last name?
No. What was an accident?
Heather hitting me.
What did she hit you with?
Her hand in the eye.
Did you guys have an argument?
Not really, no.
Not really? What happened for her to hit you in the eye like that?
She just hit me on accident. She was giving Christina a head.
She was what?
She was helping Christina with her hair or something. I don't know.
Who's Christine?
She's on the couch.
So Detective Dalton then asks Ryan, what happened last night. This really seems to irritate Ryan, and he dodges the question again and tells the detective that he wants to go to sleep. From there, the detective asks Ryan, who all was in the house. Again, Ryan seems very uncooperative, not giving much detail and just contradicting statements that he had made earlier.
Right.
What happened last night?
I don't know.
You don't know.
I really don't. I just want to go to sleep and go to sleep. Oh.
Well, you remembered Heather hitting you in the eye, right?
I don't remember after that because I just went to lay down and try to go to sleep.
All right.
I don't know what anybody was doing. I really don't.
Who was in the house when you went to sleep?
Christina and Heather.
Christina and Heather.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And Christina was on the couch?
Heather was.
Heather was on the couch. You told me Christina was on the couch just a minute ago.
I don't know, man. I really don't. I really don't.
You just don't know?
I really don't, man.
Or you don't want to tell me?
I really don't know, man. I really don't. I just want to go and go to sleep, man.
All right, you're not going to go anywhere.
As you can imagine, at this point, Detective Dalton is getting really frustrated of the back and forth here. So he basically is like, listen, Ryan, we just found a dead woman in your house.
Right.
I am trying to figure out what happened, and I need you to help me with this, okay? You have got to tell me what happened last night. Ryan goes on to say that two men, so Richie and his dad, come into the house and they shoot them with bow and arrows. Yeah. But exactly. So just very strange and bizarre. So then after that,
I'm sorry, I don't mean to laugh.
No, but it's so
Weird.
Yeah, you're like, what? What is he talking about? But after that, he changes the story once again and he says, no, it wasn't bow and arrows, it was a revolver, that he meant to say revolver. And then he goes on to tell the detective that he got shot in the eye. So they came in, they shot Heather, and they shot him in the eye.
There's a dead girl in your living room.
She's dead?
Yes.
Heather?
I don't know. I want to know what happened in your house last night.
The girl on the couch is dead?
I don't know if she's on the couch. She's dead.
Well, these people came over, Richie and his dad, with shoot and arrow, bow and darts. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
They hit me and her with those. That's it. And Heather wasn't there. And Eric wasn't there. It was just me and Heather was there.
You and Heather were there. And then what happened?
And that's it. Richie and his dad tried to break in through the back.
Richie and Dad? His dad?
Mm-hmm.
Who's Richie?
I don't know.
Well, you obviously know him. You know his name by Richie.
He used to live there.
Was he a roommate of yours?
He used to be.
And they hit you and they hit you?
Yeah.
Now it's Richie that hit you, not Heather?
No, Richie and his dad.
Richie and his dad. They hit you.
Yes.
Why?
Because they're trying to get their stuff. I don't know why.
And they had some kind of bow and arrows?
Mm-hmm. They each had 2 revolvers and they didn't let off any shells.
Okay, you just said they had bow and arrows. Now they have revolvers?
That's what I meant. They had revolvers.
They have revolvers.
Yes.
And then what happened?
And then they shot us with those.
They shot both of you?
Yeah.
Where'd they shoot you at?
I got shot in the eye.
You got shot in the eye
I think so.
with a revolver.
I think. I don't know, man. I don't know. Fuck.
So at this point, Detective Dalton is like, I can't fucking do this anymore.
I don't blame him.
Yeah, if you got shot in the eye with a revolver, you would be dead.
Right.
Yeah.
I really don't know.
Okay. You're telling me you're all over the board here, number one. You're saying bows and arrows, you're saying revolvers, and you're saying some other thing, and you're saying they shot you in the eye. Okay? They shot you with a revolver in your eye.
Yes. And that's
Is it a BB gun?
No, it was a real gun, man. It was just a
If
revolver.
they shot you in the eye with a revolver, you wouldn't be talking to me right now.
How do you know?
It was most likely you'd be dead.
That's what I thought too, man. I really don't know.
Okay?
I really don't know, and I just want to go back to sleep and try to go back to bed.
You're not going back to bed. Okay?
From here, Detective Dalton puts, more pressure on Ryan. And yet
Right.
again, Ryan changes his story. And this sets Detective Dalton off.
Ryan, you need to start telling me the truth, because your story doesn't make sense.
I'm trying, man. I don't know. Just ask me anything and I'll tell you the truth. Just ask me.
Well, I'm trying to, and you're not even coming close to the truth.
Go ahead, ask me.
What happened with you and Heather last night?
Her dad came and shot up the house.
As you heard, Ryan changes his story again, and then he says that it was now Heather's dad that came in and shot them up.
Not Richie's dad?
Not Richie's dad.
Who the
No.
fuck is Richie?
Not Richie and his dad. Now it's Heather's dad. Like, at this point, just when you think Detective Dalton is absolutely going to fly off the handle and lose his shit, he asks Ryan to lean forward so he can look at his face.
Let me see your nose. Put your legs down. Put your legs down. Bring your face closer.
Oh, my head hurts.
Okay. Yeah, be right back.
So, it is at this point that Detective Dalton realizes that Ryan was actually shot in the eye.
In the face!
That's right, folks!
In the face!
Ryan was telling the truth about that. He had been shot in the eye. Like, Ryan was not a murderer. He was
No.
just as much a victim as Heather.
Right.
Like, and he indeed had been shot in the face. Not once, but twice. Yeah. And he was still alive, like, interacting and talking with detectives.
How?
Yeah.
How?
But
How are you not bleeding profusely?
yeah. So again, not only had he been shot in the face, he had been shot in the face twice. He had a bullet in his brain still. He had 6 pieces of his eye socket that were lodged into his brain. And he had a skull fracture. Okay? So all of this.
Poor kid.
Yes. So now I want you guys to go back and rewatch those videos now that you know what you know.
Now
Okay.
you know what you know.
Yeah, I know. Now that you know what was really going on, go back and you're gonna view them in a much different light. You can see that when Detective Dalton comes back into the room, his entire demeanor changes. He is very calm and like just worried with concern for Ryan.
Yeah.
And so he goes in and tells Ryan, he's like, hey, we're going to have some we're going to have some firefighters take you to the hospital. He's like, I don't want to go to the hospital. I just want to go to sleep. And he was like, you're not going to sleep.
You cannot
like,
go to sleep
You can't
right
go
now.
to sleep.
No, dude.
Yeah, he was like, you have a really bad brain injury and we need to get you to the hospital.
So to make matters worse, by the time that Ryan finally got to the hospital, the doctors were unable to operate on him because it took so long for him to find medical attention.
Yes.
There was an infection, a severe infection that set in his brain. And remember, he'd been sitting there for like 6 hours, 4 in the fucking back of the police car and 2 being interrogated.
Yeah.
6 hours he was sitting there for the infection to take hold.
Mm-hmm.
And by the time that police had found Ryan, to when they realized that he had been shot in the eye
Yeah.
and in the face, and finally got him the medical attention that he needed.
Yeah.
I cannot believe that it took 6 hours.
Yeah, and we're gonna put the picture back up here of Ryan's face to, like, why was he not given medical attention? It is so brutal and gruesome. Like, why he was not seen by the paramedics when they came to pronounce Heather dead is beyond my recollection. Like, no matter what, even if you think that he murdered someone, it doesn't fucking matter. Like, you get them medical attention.
Right.
You have to. Like, you have to.
Right. That's their obligation.
Right.
That's their sworn in duty.
Yeah.
So finally on December 28th, 3 days after the police found Ryan, doctors were able to do life-saving procedures and surgery to help him.
Yeah.
That's right, folks. Ryan miraculously survived,
Yes.
but at what cost?
Yeah.
And it would be at a cost. Doctors had to remove one of his eyes. He was left with brain damage that made it impossible to live on his own, forcing him to move back in with his parents, and now suffered from horrific seizures.
We get to get a drink for getting through that part. So Eric had a good suggestion of 5 big gulps. So
5 big gulps. Ready?
put them up.
Put them up, ladies and gentlemen. Let's go. Forgot to put my thumb out.
I was like, how did you mess up? Like, where was the confusion there?
Now that we know that Ryan has survived this traumatic and horrific experience, we are all left with the question, what the fuck happened that night?
What happened that
What
night?
happened? Although Ryan's story was inconsistent, he did have some parts right in his story. 2 men did actually break into Ryan and Heather's house with the goal of robbing them.
Yep.
Now, whether they thought Ryan and Heather would actually be home is unclear at this point. But once they discovered that 2 people were home, they decided they couldn't leave the house unless they were shot.
Yeah, unless they shot the people, like the witnesses.
Yeah, unless they shot the witnesses in the house. So they did shoot both Heather and Ryan and left them for dead. These 2 men were no other than Richie and Larry Carver. That's where Richie comes in.
Yes. So Ryan was right. It was Richie and his dad.
But that's fucking right, everyone. Ryan had got it right by telling Detective Dalton the truth.
Yes, he did.
Richie and his dad were murderers.
Yes, Richie and his dad did this. The fact that he was able to get that right was incredible.
I know.
Like, yeah. And I understand where his story didn't really seem believable. Because it's not believable. It is literally, I mean, this is not
like,
my
he was
own
just like,
statistic,
dude, you would be dead.
yeah, like you would. Like a 1 in, like
One and
100 millionth chance of actually surviving this injury, and he did. And not only surviving it, but surviving it and being able to tell the story of what happened and be right. Like, this story is like, when I first heard this story, I remember calling you and being like, Erika.
I know.
Like, so there is a lot of false, like, reporting, and typically when you hear this story, so we just want to go and highlight those and clear those up real fast. So a lot of reports state that Richie and Ryan had lived together before, and that's how they knew each other. This is not true. So Richie actually lived in the house that Ryan and Heather were renting before them. So like right before them.
So he lived in the same house.
In the same house, but then the landlord kicked Richie out, and then Ryan and Heather moved in once it went back up for rent. Again, Richie and Ryan had never lived together. Now, it is reported that Richie had gone back to the house because he had left a few things over at the house. And so they saw that Ryan and Heather were there, and it's presumed that they like went into the house and saw that Ryan and Heather had computers and like guitars and stuff. And so that's why they think they went in and robbed them and thought it was a great opportunity. Now, remember, Ryan and his girlfriend are quite young, so it is unclear whether they thought that they would be home, because a lot of people do go to their families for Christmas.
Right.
So, like, Richie and his dad not standing up for them whatsoever, but
and they were supposed to be there.
like, they could have thought that maybe, like, that they weren't going to be at their house, that they were going to be with their family, so that they could just go in, rob the house, and, like, leave. And the reason why they thought they would be able to get away with this robbery is that if they did collect any evidence and Richie or his dad's, DNA was found anywhere, well, they can easily explain it because Richie had just lived in the house a week and a half before. So that's why.
He knew the locks. He knew, like, lay of the land, basically.
Exactly. Now, there's another report that says that Richie and Ryan had an altercation. This is also not true. Again, the only interaction that they had is when Richie had come to get stuff from the house. Ultimately, when it comes down to it, we'll never actually know the motive of, Richie and Larry Carver. Again, my personal opinion.
Did they end up stealing, like, the computers and everything afterwards? Okay.
Yeah, they did end up stealing
so
stuff
the motive
from the house.
was robbery.
Yeah. So, but it's hard to, know if they went in there intentionally wanting to kill these people or not. I don't know. It's also unclear what all they stole because Heather had been murdered and Ryan, he had such a bad brain injury that he wasn't able to provide those details of what all was stolen. I think no matter what, though, we can all agree that these murders were completely senseless. They did not need to happen. Like, the fact that Ryan didn't get medical attention until 6 hours after the police found him is atrocious. Like, I will not sit here and bash the police, but that was wrong. Like, if you saw his face, he should have been checked out by the paramedics.
Here's my thought process.
You can see the bullet holes.
If the motive was robbery,
Yeah.
why did they they had to shoot Heather and Ryan first?
Yeah, well, I think when they came in, broke into the back, that they
were alarmed that someone was actually there.
Actually home.
So then they had to take out the people that were there for them to actually carry through.
Yeah.
Because there was no, like Ryan had said, there's no shells.
Right.
There's no, they were good shots apparently because there was nothing in the walls. There was nothing in the cabinets.
Yeah.
So, at that point when they realized someone was there, their main motive was murder, so then they can get away.
But they also came with guns. So, if you didn't think, why would you need guns? You know what I'm saying? So, I don't know. Part of me goes back and forth whether they were there to actually kill them or not. But they came with guns. So, they weren't gonna not shoot someone.
Right. If it came down to it, they were gonna shoot someone to protect themselves to get away with it.
Yeah. These are just horrible men.
That's awful.
Yeah, have had their rap sheets are longer than Larry's nasty ass hair. They're I'll put up a picture. But they're I don't know. But I do think that there was a grave misjustice on the police department's side by not getting Ryan attention. Now, whether to say that would have led to anything different or not, I don't know. We can't play Monday morning quarterback here. We don't know. But he should have gotten medical attention no matter what.
Well, it's just a classic case of the police zeroing in on someone that's just convenient.
Yeah.
And not trying to see the whole picture there.
Yeah.
To form their own narrative.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
They definitely had dug themselves all because they did narrow in on what they thought happened because it was easier.
Right.
To think that than to think something else might have happened.
Right. And there was a lot of scrutiny on the Phoenix Police Department when this happened. I mean, there were lawsuits that were taken out on them. There were investigations that were done into it. And there was a lot of shady stuff that went on. And we're not going to go into the details of that, but we will link a really good YouTube video where it's good journalism. We'll link it down below. It's called This Is Monsters. And they do a really good job of covering the misjustices of the police and really diving into Detective Dalton because this wasn't the first time something like this had happened with him. Okay. And so, again, we're not going to go into that, but we will link it down below. Highly recommend watching it. But we do kind of want to wrap this up by, saying what happened. Eventually, the damage that was done to Ryan's brain would lead to his death. So
it's awful.
Yeah, 10 years after the incident, Ryan and his dad were in Publix, and Ryan suffered a terrible seizure. This seizure was due to complications from the gunshot wounds, and this did lead to his death. Now, at this point, Richie and his dad, Larry, they had already been convicted of the crimes, and they were both serving life sentences, so they did not charge Richie and Larry with Ryan's death, even though they were 100% responsible for it.
Right.
So, Erika, final thoughts on this story?
It's crazy. And there's so many things that could have happened that didn't, that could have gotten Ryan medical attention. They could have, looked elsewhere and gotten Richie and Larry sooner.
Yeah. They could have, technically they could have gone into the house and not waited for a search warrant. It's called exigent circumstances.
Yes.
So they don't have to have a search warrant because they saw a motionless body in there.
Yeah, they can go in.
They could have broken in, but they decided to wait on a search warrant. I don't know, maybe they had gotten in trouble in the past or something, or were being extra cautious. You know, I'm not going to sit here and judge them for that. But that was another hour where Ryan didn't get medical attention.
Right.
And so.
Sitting there for 6 hours without getting, I mean, you should have got medical attention when they pronounced Heather.
Yeah. When he got to the station and they were taking these photos and stuff.
Right. They should have noticed.
Yeah, someone needed to. I mean, you can see the bullet holes.
Oh, God.
You can see it. So let me show you a picture, Erica. But, I mean, you can see, like, that's how bad, like, that's a bullet hole, that's a bullet hole, that's a bullet hole. Because it had gone, like, through his nose.
Oh,
and, like,
God.
into his eye. Yeah.
They think those were tick bites? Like what did they think that was?
I know. And that's why
because that's clearly an entryway in that way.
This is, again, one of the craziest cases. It left me...
This is heartbreaking.
I know. And the fact that, like, I think what
coulda, shoulda, woulda. They could have done a lot better. And, you know, Ryan could be living. Yeah, he almost got arrested and put in jail and charged with this murder. Like, he almost did. You know, and so, yeah, this one is terrifying. It's awful. I mean, we had 2 people lose their lives over a fucking computer and a guitar. Right. That's so bullshit. Yeah. That's
like,
such bullshit.
Richie and Larry, you...
Go get your own fucking guitar. If you want to play guitar, go to fucking a hand-me-down store. Yeah. You deserve a special place in hell. Oh, definitely.
For what you did. And
definitely.
They're awful human beings.
I can't fathom all this.
I know, right?
That's a lot to process.
It is the craziest case that we have ever covered.
Yeah, I mean, this is just a lot to process. I feel sorry for Ryan. I feel sorry for Heather. I feel sorry for her parents.
Yeah.
His parents.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's horrific. It should have never happened. Yeah. So that's our thoughts. We were kind of left speechless after this one.
Yeah. Police department, do better.
Yeah. With that being said, that is the end of this case. If you liked it,
give us a like, give us a comment, subscribe, talk to your friends about us.
Yes, share
the video if you like it.
These are all free ways to help us, so please go on and do it. With that being said, Erica,
be a bitch and stay alive. Cheers. Protocol.
I think it was on the police to tell. Oh, good.
I'm smiling at very inappropriate times.
Maybe that's why people hate us.
I see her rolling. Fucking mower. Ooh, I should tell my be a bitch story. Or would I look like a real bitch?
What's your be a bitch story?
When I went to the gas station the other day on Gun Barrel, and this guy walked up to my car, the passenger car window, and was he was roll down. Kind of wasn't giving me an option or a question. It was
do it.
Roll down your window. And I'm I barely did. I'm what the fuck? I'm what do you want? I'm yeah. I asked him, he's can you give me a ride? I'm there's a million other cars here.
No.
I looked, and there was all men. Yeah. All fucking men at the gas station in their own cars pumping their gas. But this guy decides to ask me as a woman, alone in a car for a fucking ride. I'm nope. And rolled back my window back up.
Away.
I was nope, no, I didn't drive away. I waited. I rolled up my window, he walked off, and I went inside the gas station, told the dude at the counter, I'm there's some guy creeping me out saying he wants a ride from me, a woman, and I was can you please walk me my car, but also check to make sure he's there. Yeah. And please let him go away. Yeah. And he's this happens a lot. Happens a lot?
Oh, God. Beware, people. Women, stay alert.
Literally,
and again,
it happens a lot.
Don't let why we say be a bitch and stay alive. It's because like men will prey on the fact that
We
women
are the
nicer.
nurturers.
Yeah.
We are the nurturers. In society, we're supposed to be nice and we're supposed to, even
Yeah.
though we feel uncomfortable in a situation, we don't want to be rude.
Yeah, we won't be rude.
Be
We won't
fucking rude.
Yeah, that's why we're saying be a bitch. If you feel uncomfortable and your gut is telling you this isn't right, fucking be a bitch and
Be a bitch.
put yourself first and stay
Like,
alive.
I don't know what his fucking motive was.
Yeah.
What was he gonna do after he took his little ride?
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, if he wanted a ride, there were so many other men.
Yeah.
And maybe he thought that, like, they would say no too, but, like, I'm sorry.
Doesn't matter. It could have been innocent, but it doesn't. Unfortunately, in the days that we
In the
live
days
in,
that we live, I'm sorry, like,
Nope.
he should understand. You're asking a woman by herself
to do this, like
to have
no.
a ride.
Nope. The case, man. This was a case. Okay, on to the next.
Yeah, on to the next one.